Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to talk about OAuth 2.0 with OpenID Connect. Now, this topic is typically important when you are working into the security aspects of cloud services. Now, this topic will not be directly interacting with any of your service offerings or any of your cloud components, but it is actually very important to understand on how the security components work when it comes to cloud or when it comes to on-prem systems. Let's get started. So what is OAuth? Remember that OAuth is nothing but it's an authorization mechanism to get the designated access to that particular application. So basically, I only provide certain rights to one particular application on my particular, let's say, account, let's say a Google account, a Facebook account, or anything. So many a times you might have seen that some of the websites, they actually offer you registry based on your Google login or based on your Facebook login or any of the worldwide acceptable third-party provider that we have. So that actually eases the registration process. Now, what usually happens there is that like the particular application where you are trying to log in or where you are trying to register, it will go ahead, access the Facebook or the Google account that you are trying to link it with, and only get, let's say, it will not get the complete information, but let's say it just needs to access your username and like it just needs to access your username, your email ID, and your first name, last name, kind of like that. So it will only give that particular access to that particular, I mean, to that registry application and nothing else. So that is how OAuth actually works. Now, it actually provides you the permission to only access a particular resource in that application. Okay. Now remember that it is not an SSO mechanism because SSO actually works on authentication, but this actually works on authorization. So let's not mix it with the SSO application. So let's see how OAuth works. Basically, we'll have three pillars out here: the user, the application, and the third-party provider. So in our case, we are taking Gmail as an example. Remember that this can be any provider that the application has tie-up with. In our case, we are just using Gmail as an example. Okay. So what happens here is that like a user will actually request for access or request for registration, something like that. Okay, to this particular application. Now, based on which the application will actually give the user flexibility that okay, you can actually go ahead and use your Gmail credentials to log into this particular application or register to this application. Now, when it redirects it to the Gmail, it will redirect with certain set of parameters. Now, let's not go into all these parameters, but yeah, I mean, it's not a, well, for the sake of simplicity, let's just keep that like it will actually redirect to this application, okay, with certain parameters. Okay. Now, what happens after that is Gmail or the third-party application will directly talk to the user with a login screen. So the login screen is prompted directly by the application, okay, the Gmail application, not the original application. So now once the user feeds in his or her the login credentials, the credentials are passed only to Gmail. It is not passed to any other third-party provider or any other place. Now, if the login credentials are correct, Gmail will actually respond back with a consent form saying that like, okay, this application, the application where you are trying to register yourself, this application has requested access to this many resources. Let's say it can actually request for access to first name, last name, your address, all those things. Okay. Now, based on the user consent, let's say user has actually agreed to provide the access only on these particular information, the consent form is received back by the Gmail. Okay. Now, once the consent is received, Gmail actually redirects it, the consent, with certain set of parameters. So the parameters are state and the code. Okay, the state is whether it's okay or not, and the code is like a generic form of request which is actually sent back to the original application where user is trying to register itself. Now once the redirection has happened, there will be a particular let's say there will be a particular access from this application to Gmail. Now remember that this request is outside of the browser. Okay, the request that this application is making to Gmail, it is outside of the browser with certain parameters, like there was a code which was received during this redirect request. Okay, there was a client ID and a client secret. Now these are all defined parameters that this application has an agreement with the Gmail and which takes outside of the browser. So that makes it more secure, because if it is somewhere in the browser, someone or the other might actually get this information. But if it is outside the browser, this this complete flow is actually more secured. Now once the application actually sends these parameters to the to our Gmail app, the access token is received. Now access token, once received, will actually give the permission, this application, the permission to actually access few of the resources, the certain set of resources that we have in agreement on this Gmail. Now this access token is actually time bound. Okay, so basically it will be valid, let's say, for 24 hours or something like that, after which this access token gets expired. Okay, now this time limit is actually in agreement with this application and the Gmail. For to make the application more secure, we actually keep this time close to, let's say, 6 hours, something like that. But yeah, we usually tend to keep it small, not too small so that like it causes inconvenience to the user, but just the right amount so that like it'll take into consideration the security applications as well. Okay, so this is the overall flow on how OAuth works. Okay, now in OAuth flow, one might argue, why are we not sending the access token right here in this request itself? Why these two extra calls are actually being made? Now remember that all these requests are actually going via the browser. That is why we are not sending the access token on this particular request itself. There is an option to send, and some of the applications actually send it, which is called an implicit flow. But when we have this back channel access, this is called an explicit flow, and this is like more secure because this happens outside of the browser, and all the flow till here, all this actually happens in the browser, so which makes it less secure. Okay, so this is how OAuth 2.0 works. A very important topic when it comes to having cloud security applications in place. And you will see whenever you are actually working on cloud, you will see that there are many applications. Let's say there is a third-party application which needs to talk to storage. It will actually prefer talking to storage using OAuth mechanism because it makes it more secure and easy to flow diagram. It is the flow is actually very easy, and it actually gives the user flexibility to give certain operation rights on storage or on any of the application which we are using. So a very important, a very crucial topic when it comes to cloud security offerings on any of the cloud service provider. Thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned for the next one, and please do feel free to add in your questions in the comment box, and I'll try to answer all of them. Thank you.